What's going on, y'all? Your boy Joe972 here. It's currently 10 a.m. in the morning right now. It's Monday. Um, I know I look like hell right now because I haven't been sleeping very well. But I've been wanting to tell a story for a little while now. It's, a personal story of mine though, because I know plenty. I know plenty of juggalos and juggalettes out there. Have stories like this as well. But I'd be remiss if I didn't, at least mention, my own little struggles when it comes to the term of abuse. And no, I don't mean abuse as in drug abuse. I'm talking about, abuse, whether it be domestic or at home or growing up. I do want to at least, share something like that as well, because I'm getting ready to go for a run right now, and kind of trying to get the gears, rolling again too, because it's a story that I've been wanting to tell and just share for everybody else here on the Pot of Positivity as well, and to let you know that you're not alone. So let's see where this jog takes us, and I'll get back with you in a second. So originally I was going to film this when I was in the middle of running, but it's hella windy outside and it's 34 degrees outside too. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna run two laps around this complex and just come back in here, warm up a little bit, rehydrate for one, and then get this vlog going. So, like I'd mentioned, I have a story of abuse that I've been wanting to share with everybody. And like I had mentioned, no, it's not drug abuse. And it's not necessarily spousal or, relationship abuse, but it's, more like parental abuse. And I grew up with a really, really awesome set of parents. I had a great dad and a really, really awesome mom to this day, who I still love with all my heart and soul, along with my dad as well. And as the plane goes by, I've one of the reasons why I wanted to share this though is because I had a conversation with a couple of juggalos a couple years back that we sat down. I forget, we were at a show. I forget which tour it was. It was probably it was one of Twiztid's tours when they came back to Fort Worth, and we were outside. We were talking, and then the story of abuse from mothers and fathers came through. And I shared my story with a few of these juggalos and juggalettes too, and and it got me thinking. I haven't shared this with y'all either, so what can I say? I've spit little bits and pieces of it though, on comment sections as well. I've shared kind of little tidbits and all that though in other vlogs, not to mention other videos that I've shared as well. But well, to make everything a little bit more clear, it started with me with my father. Now, to this day, I don't want to get anybody the wrong impression. My dad and I were on talking terms. I'm one of those few guys out there, who has father issues. Mainly because the best way I can describe it is this: my father used to get, I want to say, jealous, because my father and I, we're very much very much alike though, but in a lot of ways though, we're very different. My dad, was a hoodlum growing up though. He was a druggie. He was he was an alcoholic, a beery, as I used to call him, a beery. He used to love beer. He used to also he used to also love doing drugs too, until he got my mom pregnant and with me. Now, all I can say is from the man that I met, that was my dad, when I was a young man, was probably the most strongest man I have ever met in my entire life. My dad was also one of those guys who didn't used to believe in himself. My family used to own a painting business, and it was very much dead. It felt like it was very much dead end though, because we were going through houses in downtown Dallas and repainting them, and stuff like that. Though, we were there all day. And I used to sit there and listen to my mom and dad, fight over money and shit like that. And, and I'll never forget one of the first things that I saw my dad do with my mom, was raise his hand up to her. I didn't know what that was, but I was 3 years old during that time. Plus, my dad was also one of those guys, who was also very impressionable about things too. I'll never forget at the age of 4, I used to love watching martial arts movies. I was big on the Ninja Turtles. I was big on Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and all that. And I'll never forget, I told my dad, like literally just looking up to him, like, Dad, I want to do that. And so we went to this dojo in Grand Prairie, Texas, called the Grand Prairie Karate Academy. And I started learning self-defense during that too. I was in the junior class. And not long after that, my dad is recording me tests for my yellow belt. And not long after that, my dad is in the dojo next to me. I'm a rank above him, and lo and behold, age 7, we were both testing for our black belts. Yeah, I got my black belt when I was 7 years old, and my dad got his black belt with me as well. My mom, also got into martial arts. It was a family thing, except for misunderstood. She was still very much a baby during that time, and my dad, used to take that, as a self-esteem thing, and then he changed himself. And the cool thing about that was, I'll never forget, even as a little boy, I used to love, watching police officers, as a kid, take down the bad guys and shit like that. Well, I once told my dad, you can do that. I know you can do that. You'd be a good cop. And I'll never forget, my mom sat down and told me the story, and she told me that, if it wasn't for me, he never would have become a police officer. Unfortunately, whenever he did that, though, because he was also working security late at night, for a couple of companies and whatnot. And then he decided to test as a police officer for Garrett, Texas. He did it. He did real good. I think he got promoted to sergeant at the peak of his career. He used to work for Ennis County in Garrett, Texas, too. And Italy, Texas. Well, this was also the time where my dad ended up cheating on my mom for the very first time. And it started there. My dad, was remorseful, but at the same time, there was tension there. My dad was also very short. He was also very short, with not just, with my mom, though, but, he was very short with everybody, including me. And pretty soon, I'm playing middle school and high school football and all that. And growing up, my dad was always one of those, when my dad was growing up, he was also one of those guys, who loved to just mess around with girls and all that. Not me. My family used to teach me that, it's not the quantity, of people that you mess around with, it's the quality of their character. Until this day, it's something that I've always taken, seriously. Even in my marriage right now. So, going into high school, my dad used to always sit there and just pester me about it. Mijo, why aren't you messing around with them? You got all these girls looking after you. Why aren't you going after them? And a lot of times, though, maybe I was a little bit dumbfounded to it, though, because, I was always a very modest kid. I never really, took a look at the big picture and all that. I was like, well, it was just normal to me. But at the same time, my dad used to always be baffled that I wasn't going after every piece of ass that I was with. Matter of fact, in high school, I had 2 relationships that lasted. One of them, was my high school sweetheart. We lasted about a year and a half until I broke up there going to my senior year. Well, around this period of time, my dad, my family had a delivery service. It was their own business, which means that my dad used to go pick up parcels and deliver them to other companies and all like that. And, that's how we made our money. They worked whenever they wanted. Well, my dad started messing around with women again. My mom, caught him and all that. And thank God to my mom, because my mom's a strong woman. She kept us together. And my dad used to always try to, blame, all the arguments on her. And I'll never forget my sophomore year. They were having an argument downstairs, and we were living in a townhouse home. I'm upstairs, and I'm listening to him. And then I hear this. And he slapped my mom. And I'll never forget, my dad also bought me a pocket knife when I was a kid. He said, Mijo, you take this with you. If anybody ever threatens you and the people you love, you take this out and you survive. If you can't beat them up, you stab, you twist, and then you run. This is coming from a Garrett, Texas police department officer. Well, fast forward to 2003. My dad slapped my mom. My mom's welling up in the eyes. And my dad's standing there defiantly. And I'll never forget, I jumped from our second floor down to the first floor right next to him. And I said, don't you ever touch her again. Until this day, my dad doesn't know that in my left hand, I had my knife. I was wearing a long sleeve shirt so he wouldn't see it. And then my dad looked at me, with this this look of, sincerity, like he was gonna cry and he was serious. Like, if you know what's better for you, mijo, you walk away. Walk away. And it was the first time I'd ever backed down from him. A year later, my dad also, we had a couple of pets too. My dad ended up crippling one of my cats and blamed it on the cat that I had, blamed it on her having worms when he actually crippled her from the waist down. And he also abused our basset hound, Daisy. He didn't want to do anything with her. He always tried to break her by telling her to do stuff. He would also drag her by the collar and then smack her. And he would do this all around our neighborhood. Fast forward to December of 2004 that year. He's trying to discipline our dog. And my dad, he's holding him down. Actually, it was a she. He was holding her down, and then he's spanking her, and then he goes from spanking her with one hand, and then he uses both hands, and he's kind of just and I see this happen. And I get up, and I push him out of the way. It's like, that's enough. And then my dad decides to push me back, and he's like, what are you going to do? Huh? What are you going to do? This is my dog. I go, this is a family dog. It's my responsibility. I'm going to take care of it. And I said, Dad, you don't abuse animals. You don't abuse animals. And then he's like, what are you going to do, huh? There's nothing you can do to stop me, mijo. Stop it. And it was right here when I said these words. One day, old man, do you hear me? One day. Until this day, I call my dad old man because one of my escapes growing up when all this was happening, I used to play Final Fantasy X on the PS2. The main character, Titus, had his father, Jecht, if anybody's ever played it, used to always call him old man. Jecht was not very, very good to his son. In this case, he was not very good to Titus up until the final battle. At this point, 2005 starts. My mom has kicked him out. She's had enough of this shit. My dad gets kicked out. My dad, starts drinking. He starts drinking. Matter of fact, he was actually drinking before that, which is not a surprise because I was drinking too. I was a teenager drinking along with him. But with this going on, though, the drinking started getting a little bit heavy. She kicked him out, and they separated. Not long after that, January of the 15th of 2005 is when I meet she meets the person that you see in the video right now, who's now my stepdad. And till this day, as tumultuous as their relationship has been nothing more than a rocky turnbuckle of ups and downs. Well, it's been rough on the edges because him being younger and my mom being older. But till this day, though, they're the happiest my mom's ever been. Sure, they've had their problems though, but it's the happiest I've ever seen her. I graduated from high school a couple of months later, and I didn't even invite my dad to my celebration. Matter of fact, I didn't even invite him to my birthday party, and my 18th birthday party was this shit too. But fast forward to all that though, and then I started having problems. It was the first real beginning of a real dark period of my life that started really early. I started drinking a lot. We had moved. I started drinking a lot, and I found myself, just tipping Jack Daniels, tipping Milagro back, whiskey and tequila together. It was bad, but at the same time, though, I wanted to, in my eyes, I wanted to be that person who still tried to keep his family together, because when they used to argue, my mom and dad, I used to always try to tell them to split up for a little bit and then come back and then hash it out. And in a long ways, though, when I turned 17, in 2004, I woke up and I just felt different about it. I just didn't care. And then after my 18th birthday party, I was at this point of like, what, just be happy. I'm going to try to, have this relationship with Dad. You don't have to have it. Christmas Day of 2005 comes along. My dad is staying up. He had drank himself to the bottom of the bottle at this point. Me, I'm doing good. I'm 18. I'm healthy. I'm not drinking heavy. I'm drinking to have fun, which it should always be. But when this was going on, though, my dad is at the bottom of the bottle. He's at this point, I didn't know, but he was smoking. He was hitting ice again. you know, after his teen years, after 20 plus years. And when this happened, my dad was all alone on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day. And at this particular point, I had a house party going on. My mom, my stepdad, you know, they went to go party with my stepdad's family. My mom was like, hey, listen, you know, if you want to have a party, just bring people over. If you want to have your dad over, you know, have him over, but just look out for him. So I invited you know, on Christmas Day, I had a house party, which was the shit. It really was. Matter of fact, I even had a date during that night as well, and she was really cool. So I invited my dad over. My dad looks like he'd been crying his eyes out. He looked horrible. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 days. So we're all having fun, you know. We got some Twiztid bumping. You know, my dad loves Twiztid's cover of the Joker because, you know, he's a Steve Miller fan too. Matter of fact, my dad's a Twiztid juggalo to this day. So, and my dad and I, we were having shot after shot after shot of Jose Cuervo. We're 9 shots in. That doesn't even count, you know, with all the beer that I'd had as well. And my dad and I, you know, we're having fun and all that, though. My date's right next to me. Mind you, my date was a cute little Asian girl who was really keeping up with the both of us, too, which is awesome. Well, a little bit of time goes by, though, and my dad, you know, wants to go home. And my dad decides that he wants to drive home drunk. And at this point, you know, matter of fact, 9 shots in, I'm 10 shots in at this point. And then it was the one time, you know, where I literally sobered up. You know, it's like, no. Dad, you can't drive home drunk. My dad, you know, being, you know, the tough, you know, taking care of business, you know, my dad's old school. He was like, no, mijo, just, no, you're being ignorant, mijo, you're gonna be ignorant. Let me get one for the road, okay? One for the road. I was like, no, you stay there. My boy Andrew and I, we're gonna drive you up the street. We'll leave your truck here. We'll take it to you tomorrow, or you can come pick it up and we'll take it back, okay? You're gonna get home safe. No, mijo, just, no, cowboy up. My dad also used to call himself he calls himself the Red Mexican, a redneck Mexican. So, you know, he starts cowboying up and all that, though, and then he's trying to push. My sister is in her room, and my sister's getting scared. And then my dad pushes me right here, and he goes, enough, mijo! And then the moment that happened, that moment, one day, came across my head, and then my dad and I throw down. Now, I don't remember too much about this, but all I can remember was giving my dad, when he pushed me right here with my left hand, because my dad and I took martial arts together, we used to always practice this move a lot too. You know, when the hand would come through, we would always go, huh, and then push somebody back. Out of instinct, all I remember was like, because my dad's a southpaw. I got my dad, you know, in his right hand, and then I hit him with an uppercut with my right hand. And then I, boom, popped it right here in the nose. And then I pulled him inwards, and then I got him in, on the side of the jaw, which to this day, he can tell you he now has a permanent clicking sound in his jaw because of it. I hit him that hard. And then pretty soon after that, though, you know, I got him down, kind of like, you know, when you see somebody in pro wrestling, you know, pull somebody's hair down and then give him the forearm to the back. Something like that, though, but then I kind of pulled him in, then I started kneeing him in his face a little bit, you know, right here. To the point, though, he's on the bathroom floor. The bathroom is not very big, but he's laying there. He's kind of getting up, and then after about a full 5 years of just pent-up anger, I let him have it. I hit him in the other side of the jaw, and I knocked him down. I knocked him out, actually. This is the part that I do remember the most, is I remember hitting him with my right hand, and my knuckle popped right as I hit him. I don't know if it was a pop or if I popped his jaw. But all I remember telling him was, this is for the time you crippled my cat. This is for the time you slapped mom. And this is for me. And this is for Amanda. Till this day, that is one story I'll never ever get over. But I'm going to tell you this. Growing up, whether it be in school or outside of school, I dealt with bullies my entire life. And the biggest bully that I beat up was my dad. And I'm going to tell you one thing. From a personal standpoint, I'm not proud of it. But from a bully standpoint, he was the biggest bully I had ever taken down. And I'm going to tell you, it felt good. And it was right at this point, where I started breaking down though, because, as his baby boy, it's like I hurt my dad. I can't believe I did this. And the whole party stops. I call my mom up and I let her know what's going on. And then I call the manager from the apartment complex we're staying at. They called the cops. And then my dad stumbles out of the door with my mom there. And I don't know if he fell down the stairs or not, because I heard a big thud. And lo and behold, up until 4 or 5 days after Christmas, I got a call from him. Turned out that he got arrested for public intoxication. What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is this. No matter where you are at home, no matter where you are in life, abuse comes in a lot of ways, whether it be from drugs, sexual or physical abuse, whether it be from your spouse, parents, brother, sister, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you this. You don't have to take any abuse from anybody in your life. We live in a society nowadays where you can't strike anybody and you can't stand up for yourself. Bullshit. Bullshit. And let me tell you something else. It doesn't matter who it comes from. You stand your ground and you fight. There's no shame in going out and fighting and getting your ass kicked. But the biggest shame you should have is not trying at all. Yeah, that may sound bad when it comes, from a bully or some shit like that. But you know what though? Fight back. Because a lot of that is psychological. Others just physical. Because psychological abuse lasts a lot longer. And the repercussions that I had to deal with that though, yeah, I stood up to a bully, but those father issues that I had, was the start of a very dark period in my life. For those 6 months, all I did was drink and party, because I didn't want to deal with it. I really didn't. I thought it was fine. My dad and I had one more confrontation 2 years after that. And mind you, I was sober at this point. And my dad, decided that, he wanted to live Mojo style and then just do whatever the hell he wanted. He wanted to go back and live his own old life. Which was pathetic, though, because, when you grow up, you've got to live your own life the way you need to, not the way you should have been beforehand. A midlife crisis can only go so far, though, but with my dad, though, it went too long. He ended up in prison a few times. I didn't see him for years and years and years on end. But more so, as I grew up, I'm going to be 33 this year. And all I can tell you is that it takes a lot to stand up to someone who's a bully. It takes a lot to stand up to abuse, especially when it comes from your own blood. Because I'll tell you right now, blood will be the first one to stab you in the back quickly. And I've never ever felt so stabbed in the back until that man hit my mother. My mom and dad, they don't get along, but they exist for each other, for me and my sister, and my half-sister Chelsea. More importantly, they've got their own lives that they're building, and not only that, I'm happy to say my dad lives a much better life than he did beforehand. He's on probation in East Texas, but you know what? I'd much rather be on probation and living a half life and remarried than being in prison. Because my dad always looks at prison as it's like summer camp, which is stupid. Nobody should ever see prison as something as a getaway. But that's the way you've always looked at it. The worst part about confronting an abuser in your family is that third stage. And that's acceptance. Because I'll tell you right now, confrontation, resolution, and acceptance are the three ways that I learned how to confront abuse within family. You confront them, you let them know why this wasn't okay. Whatever happens from there is up to y'all. And then there's the acceptance, whether it went bad or whether it went good. I'm happy to say that my dad and I, we squared off twice in life. And each time I've come out on top. Other things that I wish that I've done better as a son. I can tell you right now, I wish that I wouldn't have hit him as hard as I did, but I had to. The second time around, I wish I would have just put him down to sleep so so he could wake up the next morning with a hangover, not with a concussion. Mind you, my dad is 6'1", 250 pounds. Me, I'm 5'9", 175 right now. And it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Know this. You don't have to take any abuse from anybody. Don't take anybody's bullshit. And the story that I've told you comes from a long foretelling of a lot of things that I don't want in my own child's life as well, whether it be my son or daughter. Because when your kids decide to become a parent, it's their opportunity to show that they can do it just as good as you, even better. And it's up to you to show them that there's no way for them to do it like that. Matter of fact, you build a future better that way. Sure, we may be in a society where we can't fight back, but you know what? We also need to teach everybody that don't take our kindness for weakness, because my dad sure did. As benevolent as I am, I love him with all my heart and soul. He's my old man, and I wish, in the end, for that never to happen to my kids with me too. Much love, peace. God bless. Be good to each other. Be there for each other during the good times and the bad. I hope you enjoyed the story, because this was a story that I've been wanting to share for everybody. And if you've got, just know that there's always someone you can talk to, even if you don't know it. There's always someone to talk to. Peace.